you will need to demonstrate practically beyond the figures and the global talk how exactly these 3 tax introductions and amendments will impact on your business. You have said, first of all, that you will be forced to also ensure that whatever you have to pay, it is the consumer that will pay. And already we can't afford. So that means a lot of trouble. But I want you to, help us here. As we understand, the tax revenue value in 6 years is a total of about 300 billion Ghana cedis that the government has raked in. In 2017, 33.6 billion. In 2018, almost 40 billion. In 2019, 45.6 billion. In 2020, 47.4 billion. In 2021, 57 billion. And then in 2022, we had 75 billion. So the problem is not that of lack of revenue, but we are not in normal times. Should you be complaining that the government is increasing the burden on businesses and the people?
Yes, we should be complaining. Samson, thank you for the opportunity. First and foremost, AGI recognizes the headwinds, significant ones, of course, both international and domestic, affecting the Ghanaian economy. And we also appreciate the concern of government to secure an IMF bailout to bring about stability and confidence in our economy, respectively to the macro space that we all yearn to see so that we can get effective planning. And as you've asked the question, what is the major concern of industry? Our major concern has been that thou shalt not sacrifice the growth of industry at the expense of the IMF agenda, which is clearly an objective of government. And considering the state of affairs, it is the priority of government. But beyond securing this, if thou secures it through sacrificing the growth, there are consequences. So in our conversation and your prayer to government, we sought to demonstrate the consequences of this. And that leads to the subject matter of the taxes collected over the period, that it isn't a matter of the revenue, but the budget demonstrates that there's always a deficit position of government, irrespective of the revenue. So getting revenue is one arm of it. The second is the expenditure. So where the expenditure and the revenue has a gap, which is then established by deficit, which is always demonstrated in the budget, it does, even the government will have a target through its various revenue angles. The question is this sufficient to meet its expenditure target? And once that is not the case, then government still needs more revenue. And you could see the infrastructural development requires and the needs. And these needs are all captured under a least developing economy. The characteristics of a least developed economy are unique, and therefore the demands are excessive. When you see the urban drift, I once upon a time watched the Miracle Schools. There was a documentary you did, and the schools, some had chairs, some did not, and the question became a very contentious issue. It has to do with unavailability or insufficient infrastructure in the context of a least developed economy. The urban drift, and then the rural drift, and the population boom, all those characteristics affects the context of a developing economy. And therefore, you will not at any point in time have enough money or enough revenue to satisfy all. It becomes a subject matter of priority. How do you prioritize? Same then comes to the context of what we're discussing, that as we seek to secure the IMF deal, we're still waiting for the terms of the deal because of the external factors. That could also shape the trajectory of governance and the economic model we seek to build. So in this set context, AGI's concern is that if you seek to sacrifice growth using the excise duties, it makes industry uncompetitive. It leads to low growth. It leads to unemployment. It leads to informality of the economy. It leads to what? Low taxation. It opens the door for more importation. It puts more pressure on the CD. It distorts the economic formula that you seek to do what we call the structural transformation. The structural transformation will elude you by virtue of these dynamics. How do you correct it? So our biggest concern is that if growth is short-change, but experts will say stagflation will come in. What are these consequences into the future? I suggest and I will profess that if we go with the structure as has been tabled and as has been approved, that will automatically anchor the 18th IMF deal into the future. Because the structures as has been laid out will not give us the room to be export-oriented. The export orientation that we seek to push to export and get more revenue in terms of dollars to balance our deficit will not be the case. So we're looking at this and we are looking at the consequences of what is being rolled out for the sake of IMF. I believe in our conversation and proposition to government is, yes, my brother here has mentioned a number of issues, deepen the compliance level. The EVAT that government has introduced, and currently government is putting in place framework to roll out about 600 companies. That will be significant. And when they did the pilot, it is evident how revenue jumped. So we believe that is one way of deepening compliance. Secondly, he mentioned the exemption bill that has been repealed and then being recalibrated. We know there are implementation challenges. Some SOEs, some institutions are having difficulties through the 6-month exemption policies and the procedures. That will be perfected. That we believe will be another vehicle to rake in significant revenue. And then I mentioned the EVAT, I mentioned the exemption, and recently the utility companies have done a lot of adjustment in their pricing. That is also affecting the same companies that are producing the beverages, and in that space, most of them will be affected by the excise duty. We should realize that IMF being Agenda 1, inflation is Agenda 2 to government. So right after that, government will seek to reduce the inflationary target. But with the taxes rolled out, that will also trigger inflation. So how do you seek to reduce Agenda 2, which is the inflationary basket? And in the inflationary basket, food and non-food items form one of the significant drivers, including fuels, including other ones that the government statisticians have stated. So our biggest concern is if we roll out this policy as it is, the future will be challenging. And then the same companies that you seek to rake in this 4 billion out of will be challenged that as we are frustrated, same will be that government might not meet its intended agenda of raking in the 4 billion. So yes, the revenue basket is being raked in per government's target with its revenue or handles. But what is the expenditure basket as a least development economy? We have several challenges to attain. So I associate myself on a number of issues with our Obin, and we believe we can engage government, and as we're giving alternatives, that those will be routes that we believe will not be destructive. As much as the macroeconomic indicators as it is now is pervasive and then very intrusive, like the inflationary basket that is distorting our operations and cost of doing business. By virtue of these taxes, especially the excise duty, we do not conform even to the West African Economic Bloc. The West African Economic Bloc excise duty rate is between 1 to 10%. And as we roll ours between 20 to 50, we are out of line. And therefore, it opens the borders and there'll be a lot of imports. Obin will be excited about that, but that will put a lot of pressure on the exchange rate. And as that does, the ramifications and the consequences will be dire for our country.